On a warm summer night in June 2018, surveillance cameras captured 23-year-old Jermain Austin Charlo walking through an alley behind the Badlander Bar in Missoula, Montana. The grainy footage shows her with her ex-boyfriend, Michael DeFrance, as they move toward the end of the alley shortly after midnight. This would be the last confirmed sighting of Jermain, a member of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes and mother of 2 young sons. The events leading to Jermain's disappearance began earlier that evening, on June 15th. She and DeFrance, the father of her children, visited 3 different establishments, including the Dark Horse Bar, where they remained until approximately 10 p.m. The pair then spent several hours socializing with various groups in the alley behind the Badlander. Their interactions captured by security cameras until midnight. What happened next remains a matter of significant dispute. DeFrance provided 2 conflicting accounts of where he dropped Jermain off that night. To her family, he claimed he left her near the Orange Street food farm. However, when questioned by Missoula Police Detective Guy Baker, DeFrance stated he dropped her off in a neighborhood approximately 8 blocks from the food farm. Cell phone records would later reveal a crucial detail. Both Jermain's and DeFrance's phones pinged off a cell tower roughly 3 miles from the DeFrance family home at approximately 2 a.m. on June 16th. This timestamp places both devices in a location that contradicts both versions of DeFrance's story. The investigation would take a significant turn 3 years later when, in August 2021, Michael DeFrance was arrested, not for Jermain's disappearance, but on federal firearms charges. This development brought renewed attention to the case, though no direct connection has been established between these charges and Jermain's disappearance. The disappearance of Jermain Charlo remains one of Montana's most perplexing missing persons cases. Despite extensive searches, a billboard campaign, and a reward offered by the Confederated Salish and Kootenai Tribes Tribal Council, the fundamental question remains: what happened to Jermain Charlo after she walked out of that alley in downtown Missoula? The investigation into Jermain's disappearance quickly revealed the complexity of her life in the months leading up to that June night. At just 23, she was navigating co-parenting her 2 young sons, Thomas and Jake, while trying to build a future for herself. Her family describes her as devoted to her children, making her sudden disappearance all the more suspicious. Detective Guy Baker of the Missoula Police Department has spent thousands of hours on this case, conducting hundreds of interviews and following leads across multiple jurisdictions. The investigation has been complicated by the overlapping authority of tribal, local, and federal law enforcement, a common challenge in cases involving Indigenous victims. One of the most puzzling aspects of the case emerged through surveillance footage from that night. While cameras captured Jermain's movements through various parts of downtown Missoula, there's a crucial gap in the timeline between her last known sighting in the alley and the 2 a.m. cell phone ping miles away. These missing hours have become the focus of intense scrutiny by investigators. The investigation took an unexpected turn when search efforts expanded to include human trafficking possibilities. Detective Baker publicly acknowledged this avenue of investigation in 2018, stating that law enforcement couldn't rule out the possibility that Jermain had become a victim of trafficking, a growing concern in cases of missing Indigenous women. By 2019, the case had gained significant attention, leading the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes to authorize reward money and fund billboards across the region. These efforts were part of a larger movement to bring attention not just to Jermain's case, but to the broader crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women, MMIW, in Montana and across the United States. The arrest of Michael DeFrance in 2021 on firearms charges brought renewed scrutiny to the case. Court documents revealed a complex history between Jermain and DeFrance, though he has consistently maintained his innocence in connection with her disappearance. The federal case against him has faced numerous delays, with trial dates being vacated and rescheduled multiple times. As the investigation continues, law enforcement faces the challenge of piecing together what happened during those crucial hours after midnight. Every cell phone ping, every witness statement, and every surveillance frame has been scrutinized, yet the answer to Jermain's disappearance remains elusive. Her grandmother, Vicky Velarde, continues to be a powerful voice, regularly speaking at MMIW events and working tirelessly to keep Jermain's story in the public eye. As of 2024, the disappearance of Jermain Austin Charlo remains unsolved. The last confirmed sighting of her in that Missoula alley, followed by the mysterious cell phone ping near the DeFrance family home, continue to be the key pieces of evidence in a puzzle that has haunted investigators for nearly 6 years. If you have any information about the disappearance of Jermain Austin Charlo, please contact the Missoula Police Department or the FBI's Salt Lake City Division. Even the smallest detail could be the key to bringing Jermain home and providing her family with the answers they've sought for so long. This case remains open, active, and unsolved. In the shadows of Atlantic City's glittering casinos, a sinister pattern emerged in the fall of 2006. 4 women's bodies, discovered in various stages of decomposition, would reveal a dark underbelly that existed far from the bright lights of the boardwalk. Among them was Barbara Bridor, a 42-year-old woman whose story traced an arc from privilege to tragedy. Raised in a prestigious family in Huntington Valley, Pennsylvania, Barbara attended Catholic school and was known for her quick wit and broad smile. Her sisters remember her as the smartest of the siblings, a natural who could have been a Jeopardy champion. She attended Penn State for 2 years before joining her mother's successful Native American art business, the Santa Fe Trading Company. But Barbara's life would take a devastating turn in 1998 with a single decision: taking a prescription pain pill for menstrual cramps. The medication belonged to her boyfriend, Stanley Frizzell, and what began as casual use spiraled into a devastating heroin addiction that would consume them both. By 2001, the descent was complete. Barbara and Frizzell made the heart-wrenching decision to send their 4-year-old daughter Dominique to live with Barbara's sister in Florida. Within a year, Barbara was working the streets of Atlantic City as a prostitute, her former life now a distant memory. On October 17, 2006, Barbara left her friend's duplex on North Lafayette Avenue in Ventnor, New Jersey. It would be the last time anyone saw her alive. 34 days later, on November 20th, 2 women walking along a dirt access road behind the Golden Key Motel made a grotesque discovery. 4 bodies in a drainage ditch, all facing downward, their heads pointing east. The victims were found barefoot but fully clothed. Barbara's remains revealed a potentially lethal dose of heroin in her system, but due to decomposition, investigators couldn't determine her exact cause of death. She was the 3rd victim to be identified, but authorities believe she was the 2nd to die, sometime after Molly Dilts and before Tracy Roberts and Kim Raffo. The investigation would reveal a haunting pattern. All 4 women had experienced profound loss, either through divorce or death of loved ones, before falling into addiction and prostitution. Each had been disposed of in the same location, suggesting a single perpetrator who knew the area well. one person of interest emerged: Terry Olson, a guest at the Golden Key Motel during the time of the murders. He even reported finding construction boots on the motel's roof. Despite providing DNA samples and taking a polygraph test, Olson was never charged, and the case grew cold. The investigation took another turn in 2023 when Rex Hoyerman was arrested for the Gilgo Beach murders in Long Island. Given the similar victim profiles and geographical proximity, investigators from both jurisdictions met to compare timelines and methodologies. However, they concluded there was no apparent connection between the cases. The details of the crime scene painted a methodical killer. All 4 victims were discovered in the same watery ditch behind the Golden Key Motel, an area known for its transient population and criminal activity. Kim Raffo, the most recent victim, had been strangled with either a rope or cord. Tracy Roberts died of asphyxia, though the exact method remained unclear. Like Barbara, Molly Diltz's cause of death could not be determined due to decomposition. The toxicology reports revealed a disturbing pattern: cocaine in Kim and Tracy's systems, alcohol in Molly's, and the lethal dose of heroin in Barbara's. This led investigators to theorize that the killer might have used drugs or alcohol to subdue his victims before taking their lives. For Barbara's family, the loss was particularly profound. Her sister, Valerie Ansey, who had taken in Barbara's daughter years earlier, was left to explain to young Dominique why her mother would never return. The girl who had once seemed destined for success, the straight-A student who could answer any Jeopardy question, had met a violent end in a drainage ditch. Today, the Atlantic County Prosecutor's Office maintains an active investigation into these murders. The case files remain open, the evidence preserved, waiting for the breakthrough that might finally bring justice to Barbara Bridor and the other 3 women whose lives ended behind the Golden Key Motel. The killer, dubbed by some as the Eastbound Strangler due to the victims' heads being positioned facing east, has never been identified. 15 years after the discoveries, investigators continue to receive and follow up on tips, but the person responsible for these murders remains free. The case stands as one of New Jersey's most notorious unsolved murders, a reminder that beneath the neon lights and tourist attractions of Atlantic City, a killer once walked free and may still be walking free today. On a cold Sunday morning in March 1993, police officers responded to a welfare check at an apartment in East Providence, Rhode Island. What they discovered would launch a decades-long quest for answers, one that continues to this day. 30-year-old Lee Malloy, known to friends as Sled Dog, lay naked on her bathroom floor. The front door to her apartment stood open, water running from the bathroom faucet. In the kitchen, 2 drinking glasses and a half-eaten salad suggested a recent visitor. Oddly, the refrigerator was full, but unplugged. The scene bore telltale signs of violence. Laurie's dark hair was scattered throughout the apartment, wrapped around her fingers, between her toes, and formed into what investigators described as a bracelet around one wrist. Fresh bruises marked her upper thighs and arm. Near the front door, officers discovered a particularly disturbing piece of evidence: a clump of light brown hair in a shoe, described by one officer as appearing to have been pulled out of someone's head. At the time of her death, Laurie was in the final stages of divorcing John Mariano, known in local circles as Scary Harry. Their relationship had been marked by violence. Mariano had committed felony assault against her in 1990 and violated a protective order. A prison letter from 1988, just 8 months after their wedding, revealed his attempt to manipulate her testimony in a criminal case against him. The investigation would take a controversial turn. The medical examiner assigned to the case, a doctor who would later lose his license to practice in both Massachusetts and Rhode Island, ruled Laurie's death as natural, citing hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. This conclusion came despite his own notes indicating no major damage to Laurie's heart, and without addressing her clean toxicology screening or the obvious signs of trauma at the scene. 27 years would pass before new information emerged that would challenge everything about the original investigation. In August 2020, the case caught the attention of both the Rhode Island Medical Examiner's Office and the Attorney General's Office. What followed was a stunning revelation. In March 2021, a senior medical examiner reviewing Laurie's case made a startling declaration. Laurie did not die of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. In fact, there was no obvious natural or unnatural cause for her death. The entire 1993 autopsy was effectively refuted. The original investigation had overlooked crucial elements. 14 pieces of evidence had been collected from the scene, including a bath towel with apparent mucus, bed sheets, infant clothing, and those mysterious drinking glasses. A sexual assault kit was completed, but the results seemed to vanish into the bureaucratic void. Adding another layer to this complex case was Laurie's relationship with Thomas Kelly, her daughter Lauren's birth father. Their breakup in July 1992 had been contentious. An ominous note in Laurie's planner read, "Tommy's threats over Lauren will settle soon." Following Laurie's death, Lauren would eventually be removed from Tommy's care. By 2022, an independent forensic pathology specialist in New York reviewed the case and raised alarming questions. The specialist noted that Laurie's lungs were severely congested at the time of death, weighing 1,519 grams with no reasonable explanation. The original cause of death wasn't just questionable, it was completely unsupported by the medical evidence. The nickname Sled Dog, which had followed Laurie since her adventures mushing in Alaska during the 1980s, now became a rallying cry for justice. Her daughter Lauren began a determined campaign to uncover the truth about what happened in that East Providence apartment on March 7, 1993. Despite mounting evidence suggesting foul play, the path to justice has been fraught with bureaucratic roadblocks. In September 2021, an assistant attorney general stated he saw no sufficient reason to reopen Laurie's case. This despite the medical examiner's complete rejection of the original autopsy findings. A promised follow-up within weeks never materialized. Perhaps most frustrating for Laurie's family is the continued existence of crucial evidence that remains untested. The Rhode Island Department of Health confirmed in 2021 that all of Laurie's original histological specimens from 1993 were still available for retesting. These specimens, combined with the 14 pieces of physical evidence collected at the scene, could potentially hold the key to understanding what really happened that March morning. The facts paint a disturbing picture. A young mother found dead under suspicious circumstances, hair violently pulled out and scattered throughout the apartment, unexplained bruising, 2 drinking glasses suggesting a visitor, a refrigerator mysteriously unplugged, and perhaps most tellingly, a medical examiner's ruling that has been completely discredited by modern experts. Today, more than 30 years after Lee Malloy's death, the case remains unsolved. A $1,000 reward offered by Unsolved RI stands for any information leading to an arrest. Lee Malloy continues her fight for justice, pushing against institutional resistance and bureaucratic inertia. The woman known as Sled Dog to her friends, who once mushed across Alaskan snow and dreamed of a future with her young daughter, deserves answers. The evidence exists. The witnesses may still be out there. And somewhere, buried in the details of that March morning in 1993, lies the truth about what really happened to Lori Lee Malloy. This case remains open and unsolved. Anyone with information is urged to contact the East Providence Police Department or Unsolved RI. Sometimes the smallest detail can break open a decades-old case. For Lori's daughter Lauren and for justice itself, the search for truth continues.